Hi, I'm Willy Bearden. Welcome to Dialogue. This is a very special day for me and for us. This is the first time I've been back in the studio here at the Library Channel since January of 2020. And today is July 12th, 2021. So it's been a long time since we've been back, and I'm so glad to be back, and I would like to say yet again that I appreciate everything the Memphis Public Library does for our community and for letting us do these shows here. We get to talk to a lot of interesting people, and that's why you're watching this, I hope, and that's why we do it. Today I have two guests, and these are two women who have done a lot in their careers, and they've had very good professional careers, but they also have done lots and lots of volunteer work, and they've made Memphis certainly a better place. I want to introduce you, if you don't know them, to Deborah Clubb and Judy Card. Welcome.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
I'm glad you're both here. Judy, you worked at the library for a very long time. Tell us about, was it your first job in Memphis?
The reason I came to Memphis was Memphis Shelby County Public Library at the time, and it was my first job. I started out at the old South Branch Library on South 3rd Street.
Okay.
Stayed through many, many different career changes within the library system until about 2003, almost 2004. Then went on to libraries in Mississippi. So I love this library especially, and I love all public libraries. So I'm really glad to be here.
That's wonderful. And Deborah, you had a very long career at the Commercial Appeal.
Surely did.
Was that your first job in Memphis?
I came here to work for the Commercial Appeal.
Wow.
I grew up in rural Kentucky on the tobacco and dairy farms, and got a master's degree in journalism at Northwestern in Evanston. Worked a year in Washington covering ag policy during the Carter administration.
Really?
But that was for the big farm magazines of the time, and I wanted daily newspapering. Memphis called looking for a farm reporter, and my chair of the school at Medill at Northwestern called me and said, "Would you like to work in Memphis?" In 1978, I came to Memphis.
Wow. Wow, that's a great start, I'd say. A really good start. So was it an odd thing for a woman to be reporting on farm policy?
I was the first female business reporter at the Commercial Appeal.
Is that right?
And as we remember, it was an old newspaper even in 1978. So I was the first woman on that news staff, and went on to be the first I was also then the first to cover agribusiness as well. Yep.
Okay. Wow. A lot of firsts here. Tell me, what do you think kind of looking back, what did you gain from growing up on a farm and living in a small community?
I think I know how to take care of myself and survive a lot better than some of the people I've met over time. Because it was a true working farm. Kentucky is small farms. It's not like the agriculture we have south of Memphis. Mm-hmm. So we worked really hard, and we learned how to make do and get through things. And I think it made my family closer and gave us certain kinds of values that we carried on out into our adult lives. So it also certainly showed me that there were some gender issues that I didn't have language for as a kid growing up. So I did learn when I went to college that there were ways to think about being female in this country that I hadn't been quite allowed to do on the farm, where boys did certain things and girls did certain things. Right. So that has certainly informed a lot of my later work.
You know, there was a huge chasm there between things. I was talking to a friend the other day, a woman I went to high school with, and I told her, I said, it was funny when we were in high school, you didn't really have friends who were girls. I mean, it just kind of wasn't done then. And I'm glad to see that people do that now, and that lots of things have changed. And I, as I was thinking about, talking with both of you, I thought your life has, you came along right at that time when things were changing.
Yes.
Dramatically, really slowly, but really dramatically, and looking back. And I actually did have a question here. It occurred to me, and I had to look this up, but the Equal Rights Amendment, which was a huge thing when I first moved to Memphis, and I was becoming aware of those things, and I had to learn the language of that, as we all kind of had to learn the language of gender, and we all had to learn the language of race, and all of these things back then. And I saw that like I said, I had to check, but the Equal Rights Amendment has never been ratified.
No.
That, to me, I went on Wikipedia this morning, and I thought, maybe it has, but something in my head said, no, it was never ratified.
No.
There was a very big demonstration gathering downtown. In fact, I want to say in the late 70s, Carolyn Yellen, one of our dear Women of Achievement co-founders, was involved in setting that up, and still it didn't pass.
No. And in fact, Willie, there's a bill introduced every year, has been all these decades in Congress, to once again push the Equal Rights Amendment. That's been ongoing, and with Virginia recently voting to affirm the amendment, there's some discussion that we might figure out some way to get it finally.
Wow.
But it's a whole other show to talk about the complexities of how that works with constitutional amendments. But no, there is no Equal Rights Amendment. And Judy and I would be considered second-wave feminists because we came up through that era of marching and demanding this and that and getting several things done through the 70s. But what we learned, sadly, through the 90s was that you can put a lot of things on paper, but unless there's enforcement behind those things, everything certainly is not achieved. So we are still really fighting for a great many things, including inclusion in the Constitution of the United States of America.
Wow. It's kind of unbelievable.
It is.
It really is.
It is.
So along with that, at what point, Judy, did you start kind of stepping out of, people who work are busy, and you don't wind up having a lot of time. When did you start stepping out and doing volunteer kind of work and things that you were passionate about?
I think when I very first came to Memphis, I knew absolutely nobody, and if the phone rang, I could go, "Hi, Mama, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
So I had to find a way to get out into the community. I was here at the library, and I found through people at the library who were going the National Organization for Women, which was at that time meeting downtown in one of the church basements, and that was probably for me the biggest start. And then, though, also, the Center for Reproductive Health started doing women's health self-care workshops, and that was another really big piece of it for me because it was life-changing in terms of the things those groups talked about.
Yeah. What organizations were there before this, first and second waves of women's rights? Were there any places where women could talk about these issues?
Well, in Memphis, we've got the 19th Century Club, which predated suffrage
by
quite a bit. We had the creation of the Women's Exchange, which was somewhat later, but was women of means recognizing that women without means were really struggling and starving and gave them a way to sell their crafts and so forth. That's the start of the Women's Exchange, which is still open and serving lunch and selling crafts. So there were certainly ways that women pulled together. Often it was a book club. There were ways they would pull together across Protestant, Catholic, Baptist lines, across those who might work as a teacher and those who were the club lady level. So women have always been finding ways to get together and make things happen, and that's a lot of what we honor in Women of Achievement is that very dynamic.
Sure.
That when something needs to get fixed, all right, well then let's fix it.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, I remembered I did a film on the history of juvenile court when it had its 100-year anniversary a few years ago, and that really started because the women got together and said, you know, we're not going to have children in jail with adults anymore.
Yes, Suzanne Coulon Scruggs and the others at the 19th Century Club. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, it's funny that you have to push that hard and work around things. I mean, I remember somebody saying that the women who did that would just, you know, tell their husbands, hey, listen, we're not going to do this anymore. You're going to do something about this. And they would kind of send their husbands to go talk to the people who could make the decisions.
Yes, some of the women were certainly well placed enough to do that. And then, as we know from some of the work Dr. Beverly Bond and others have done, if you were in the African American community or in another more marginalized situation, then you found other ways. It was through your church or this or that. So, I think that the study of social justice, which is, you know, the really fancy phrase for why is this happening and let's change it. I think that's endlessly fascinating, and there's some great personalities and just some great stories of not only sacrifice but a real contribution, real innovation even. And I think that's what's exciting about this work that we do. We discover where that's happened and who has made that happen.
Yeah.
And most of all, we are finding it and preserving it so that these history texts that are so incredibly lacking in the female experience, there's a little reservoir that we're creating to hold those stories. And so people who want to know more and know something else have a place to look. Right,
and as we've always known, those who control the narrative control history.
Yes.
They control the story. And how did these ideas morph into this organization? And did Women of Achievement start first? Or
I think there are several things that started first. As Deborah said, there have always been groups that were active in Memphis, but also libraries have been helpful, and part of the story of Women of Achievement would have to be Jean Dreyfus, who was over at the co-op at the University of Memphis discovering a grant project through Radcliffe College that was called Women in the Community, and they chose 7 communities including Memphis, and women went for training and had a series of 4 programs over the course of a month, each focusing on a different area of needs and things of importance to women, like religion and entertainment and art and family raising.
Medicine or not?
I don't think medicine was in there, but it was. From that, Jean connected me with Deborah, who had a great idea, and take it away, Deborah.
Well, and first I've got to make sure that Judy gets enough credit. You wrote the grant, didn't you?
Yeah, I did write the grant.
She wrote the grant. So
really?
It's one of my secret superpowers.
Oh, okay. And folks, like they say, that ain't easy, right? I mean, writing grants is hard work, right?
No.
It was a team of women, though Radcliffe had really put a lot of thought into it, and it was also a National Endowment for the Humanities Project, so it required for the grant team a women's studies scholar, an academic librarian, a public librarian, and a community activist. And so that pulled together a strong planning team to start with. Yeah. We had great meetings planning what we were going to put into the grant.
I bet. Wow.
And Jeannie, I knew, I was only in Memphis a year or 2 before that program was staged. So somehow through Network, the organization that had been created by women here who were working in very male-dominated arenas, who wanted to have a space at least once a month to just get around other women who were fighting those barriers. Through Network, I knew Jean and some other people, and I had gotten tired of covering the Men of the Year lunches and dinners and galas and fundraisers at the Peabody. So I went to the Women in the Community series down in the basement, and the veil fell away, and here were these women and all these stories about these amazing things that had been done in Memphis that I knew had to be here. So then I got with Jeannie, then we came back with Judy and collected their planning group again and some others, and that's how we then created this idea of a celebration. So we weren't going to be marching and protesting and yelling You know, we were going to celebrate, find
Right.
and celebrate women's history. And that then, the whole process of how to get the nominations and make it a community-wide event, not any one organization owning this or any one career or profession being saluted, but all kinds of women from all walks and all races. And that's been the beauty of it. And we had some pretty great meetings too in Judy's office up in the sort of tree loft of the old library. And Women of Achievement, here it is, all these years later.
One of the interesting things about how we got started was women would come to these meetings because our categories, if you look at them, are fairly esoteric. They're not best in your career at all. They're based around qualities. And women would come carrying their thesauruses and their dictionaries. There were some pretty serious fights considering it was in the library. It was pretty, you know, gloves off kind of stuff. And we came through with some excellent definitions that still hold true today, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I've always been, when I've gone to your website and looked at that, I thought that's really a good way to put that. You know, I would have never thought to have those categories. Just name some of the categories you have.
We can't help ourselves.
Yeah, they're so precise.
This is like show and tell.
Because we really did hammer and hammer until we thought that they captured the impetus, the motivation, not the amount of money or power that any of this activity created.
And after all this talk, we came up with the following: initiative, determination, courage, heroism, vision, steadfastness, and heritage. And they all have very precise definitions, thanks to those of us who sat around the table arguing about it.
With the thesaurus, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
Well, have you, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but have you seen that these stories have kind of made their way to history books or any kind of curriculum for kids or college students or anybody? Are you seeing that now, that people who write the history books are using that?
I don't know that we have a good way to document that. When you do a search of the name of any one of the over 237, is that right?
It's 262 now.
Gosh.
Wow,
262 names. If you do that search, then our website and our essay about the recipient, the award winner, comes up. So it's part of that. But in terms of being able to measure that per se, I don't know. But we are equally interested, I think, in inspiring young women today and also women of every age to realize you can see a problem and you can, in fact, go do something about it.
Yeah. Huh. Well, and when you said that, I thought, you know, when I've looked for different people, your website always comes up.
Good.
And it's always so well written.
Thank you.
And you really do get a sense of who somebody was and what they did.
We make a point of trying to find out more than just what you did. We're really interested in why you did it, what inspired you to do it, and what kept you going. Because it's one thing to have an idea or to see a problem, but it's another thing altogether to go do something about it. So we aim at finding out their motivation and telling their story as a story, not a resume.
Right.
And if we can get it all at what might have been in their earlier experience or any trigger, you know, we try to maybe
what
work
was
that in
it?
as well. But Judy's right. It's all about motivation and what inspired or pushed someone to go beyond the everyday that so many people think is all they can do.
Yeah. Do you feel like a lot of these women were working by themselves and, you know, and without a lot of help from other people, or were there people in organizations who were just pushing that agenda along?
I think most of this is very individually led. They often build a collaborative, build some kind of movement and support, but I think many of these stand out to me as women who will just persevere. They will not let whatever that objective, whatever that cause is, They won't let it go.
Yeah.
So, they may not become the Mahatma Gandhi of their topic, but they will move something. They will leave something changed before they quit.
Very nice. I was thinking today about the forces on the other side of this, and I know that certainly in the through the 1980s and 90s and still today, there were a lot of conservative women's groups. Women reacted in some ways kind of violently to what people like you were doing, and they started couching all of this in, well, these are traditional values we stand for and all that. I mean, the Phyllis Schlafly's of the world. How much damage did that do to what you were trying to do?
Well, I think that's one reason we came at this as a celebration and trying to make it more of an educational effort around women's history. We didn't all stand up and say, women have been left out of the textbooks forever, this is a feminist cause, because we've seen what Phyllis and her ilk did to the really muscular kind of approach, that method. So we simply came at it very differently, Willie, I think, but because, as has been well documented, based on misinformation and whatever else, fear-mongering and all the rest of it, Phyllis Schlafly and her crew and her successors continue to make it very difficult to move some of the issues that women really deserve support with, including things like really accessible, affordable child care, because that ought to be an infrastructure issue. I can't go to work without it. I can't go to work without a bridge and a road. So anyway, yes, there's that. And the thing that keeps me going very much about this and knowing that we're not finished, and it's data like what I have in front of me here, the National Women's History Museum has done studies of textbooks, history textbooks, the ones that are supposed to be teaching our children the history in which they're growing up. And out of 737 historical figures taught K to 12 in every state, only 178, or 24%, are women, and that includes fictional characters like Rosie the Riveter. So what is that, sort of 2 out of 8 or something, 2 out of 7? 98 of the women appear in only one state standard, and only 15 are taught in more than 10 states.
Really?
So that's how little women's participation in the lifetime of this nation is even taught in the K-12 curriculum. And to make it worse, 63% of those women are white. So
that's astounding.
African American, Asian American, indigenous women, on and on. Not even in there.
And I would like to say one thing about the beginning of Women of Achievement. One of the things that made it work well, I think, was it was based on a strong, very broad-based coalition of existing women's groups. And we did not have a particular agenda except celebrating stories. So it included things like the Democratic women and the Republican women and all kinds of other women's groups. Network was a big sponsor. The YWCA, of course, was with us, the Girls Inc., libraries, the Women's Center for Research.
National Coalition of 100 Black Women.
The National Council of Negro Women was part of our group initially. All of these groups came together.
Church Women United.
Hadassah. Things like that. And so that made a big difference in our beginning as we started with a strong, already connected series of groups.
Right. And you didn't stake out a particular agenda other than bringing these stories to light.
Which also speaks to what Deborah just said about the lack of women in history books. I think part of that is the stories weren't captured. They weren't written down anywhere. So part of what we're doing is capturing those stories so that they can be found as other books are written. Because if you can't find it, then you have a really good excuse for not including it.
Sure, Wow, I always hate to think that we live in a system that is rigged, but when we look at things like this, we see really just how rigged it is, and how people are just completely shut out of the story. And that is a travesty.
Well, the professional writing of history until the 70s, women could hardly get a toe in. And you remember, did you ever, Willie, hear the phrase herstory?
Yes.
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 See, that was a language gambit that women studying history tried to use through the 70s and onward to get some attention to the missing stories and to that mindset that was, unless it was a male experience of war or governance or money domination, it didn't fit in the book. So we're still on really a beginning edge of adapting that to a more inclusive and very much more interesting narrative.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes, all those stories just make the whole American story so much richer.
Right?
I mean, the things that I've read on your website are just, they're so interesting. They tell the rest of the story, and story that you've never heard. I think we should probably put up the website here, and I'm sure the guys, as they edit, will put up the website, because I really would like for everyone to go to that website and just get in there and look around. You're going to find some of the most interesting things you've ever read, and it's very easy to navigate. And you'll be a better person for it, I'll say.
And they can also find there how to participate in this. We still want to hear from people about the stories that we need to know about. We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So there's a way in there to nominate. There's a way in there to join and be a member of this, so that when we meet to review the nomination files and select the new honorees, the whole community can join up and be part of those committees. So all of that's possible on the website too.
That's great. That's wonderful. Let's talk about the women's legacy trail. How did that come about? Okay, there it is, right there. Let's get a good shot of that. And how did that come about? And where can people see this?
Well, it came about because it seemed to us that, yes, we had this wonderful website and we knew these stories, but we hadn't ever really tried to help people find the physical remainder of of where these women did what they did or where they're celebrated. And so as the city of Memphis was busy creating several different trails, it occurred to us to do one for women. How about it? Yeah. So we had a great team. We had Dr. Beverly Bond, Dr. Margaret Caffrey, Peggy Caffrey, Judy, myself, Dr. Gail Murray, Jimmy Ogle, past now Shelby County historian, and Laura Todd. And we looked at that treasure trove of, now, as I say, 262 honorees, plus the suffragettes, plus the martyrs of yellow fever, and just kept looking at sort of downtown to the University Memphis area. How could we locate some routes for people and let them then look on their phone at the essays, have a few snippets of information in our brochure. It's the actual guide here with the map and everything. And, voila.
Yeah.
There's a way to go around, including to Elmwood Cemetery, the gorgeous Elmwood Cemetery, to stop and think about some amazing activity that's gone on, led by women in our community.
Yeah.
It was pretty much as fun as establishing our definitions. One of the things is there are many less markers and statues of women in our community, and so finding and locating those was both challenging and exciting. It was a lot of fun.
And we owe a lot of that to Jimmy Ogle, who is nuclear-driven man, and he went around the county taking pictures of anything that had a woman's name on it, so we had plenty of good material.
Yes, he is. I got a thing from Jimmy this morning. I'm gonna see him at the unveiling of the Ida B. Wells statue on Friday. And he said, well, I sent you a little thing I just thought about. And he had pictures of everywhere that Ida B. Wells was mentioned or is in a mural or something.
Yes.
And it's like 9 pages of pictures and things.
Yes, I have it too. It's
Oh,
like,
you
it's,
do?
It's,
Okay.
it's like a sub-trail A now to this, because we
Right.
have her in here in some of the spaces that he mentioned, but they continue to proliferate. Yeah, Jimmy's
He is
rare, wonderful
he's an
individual.
extraordinary human being. He when he gets on the trail of something, he is not going to let go till he finds it.
That's right.
And yeah, he's we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate he still comes back
Yes.
to Memphis and does what he does for Memphis. We've been I've been working on a project with him, the Rural Heritage Trust, for just out in the county, you know, some of these communities that don't exist anymore and all this. So he's really been a great help, and I know he's a great help to y'all with this. So let's talk about some of the women that you found. Tell me some of your favorites.
Oh, gosh.
Tell me about some of the people that you didn't know before, and how these things come about. I mean, would people come to you and go, "Well, have you ever heard of so and so?" And you go, "No, I've never heard of that person."
Well, when the nominations come in, they're always people we've never heard of.
Really?
Always.
Okay, yeah.
Always. Because again, we're trying to get from all across the community, you know, and I don't spend time in every neighborhood and every
Right.
church and so forth. So we've certainly discovered a lot of people. Do you have your favorite unknown one in mind yet, Judy?
Well, I would say my favorite unknown one, although she's more known now, but she was unknown to me when we started, was in 2012 we honored Summer Owens. And what Summer has done, if you are unfamiliar with her, was she was a young teenager. She became pregnant pretty much on her 15th birthday. She'd had no education. She knew nothing about how to not become pregnant.
She was raped.
She was virtually raped. And she was determined. So she had her child. She ended up moving to live in Jackson with her grandmother because it wasn't a good home situation. She did very well in school. I think she graduated 8th in her class. She received some help from the University of Memphis, came here after the second year, got her own apartment, brought her baby boy to live with her. Friends that she'd made in Memphis would help when she needed to be in class. She wrote a book, and now she also lectures and talks to teens about how to not have a baby and how to move forward with your life. And she continues to inspire people. She has also been a big supporter of Women of Achievement and spreads the word about us as well. But reading her story was remarkable, and one of the things we wanted to do in terms of inspiring, that Summer does that.
Wow.
So that's one of my favorites.
Oh,
Yes.
that's great.
She worked for FedEx for a while, and she's currently the president of the National Alumni Association at the University of Memphis.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Summer's remarkable.
She's a dynamo.
Yeah.
You know, I think that just shows you that really all people need is to know, and then to be able to be determined a little bit, and anything can happen for anybody. You know, and that's such a great thing. I love that. Tell me what you're looking for the future. What in your wildest dream, what would Women of Achievement become in the next 50 years?
My goodness. More of what it is, I think. More stories, more ways to make the world aware of the stories. I wish every community had a Women of Achievement program, because we know these stories are also adrift in many other communities.
Yeah.
So I think expanding on the connection between the stories and the physical spaces is something we ought to also do. And certainly, you asked the question about have we had an impact yet on textbooks or curricula. I think that world enough money and time, I would see Women of Achievement more muscularly in the school systems in March, February is Black History Month. March is Women's History Month, and we ought to have a manageable curriculum block for K-12 for all the kids in Memphis and Shelby County to learn some of these stories and be inspired. We hope to learn more of them just in that month, even if it's one time a week for the 4 weeks of March or something. There should be something. And I have seen, again, from the Women's History Museum, they've worked up a curricula, I guess, for various ages around that kind of challenge. So I know it's possible. I just happen to not be a trained curricula writer, but I know people who are.
Yeah,
so
sure.
that would be one of my hopes.
I would personally like to see more women become aware of us and become actively involved. One of the things that makes the Women of Achievement process different is anyone in the community can make a nomination. And all you have to do is go to our website and do it. And one thing that isn't well known is we hang on to the nomination files for a while, because when you sit down we usually do it on a weekend, when you sit down with a group of women, you have a whole boxes of files. You divide them up and you sit at a table and you talk about initiative. You read every file, you talk about what was really great, and then you start developing lists of, well, who do we think was the most important? Well, there are many, many wonderful women to choose from who deserve recognition. So the more nominations, the better, and the more women actively involved in selecting the recipient for that year, the better it is, and the more likely the stories are to be kept and told.
I don't think we've said that there are 7, we named them, but there are 7 awards. We have occasionally given 2 or 3 women a shared award if they together created something like the Children's Museum Founders. We honored all of them, for example. But when we have, a couple of hundred nomination files and you can only do 7 a year, and Willie, we have a terrible situation where women age into the steadfastness category, and then sadly, people die, and then they're in the heritage category.
Sure, yeah.
So
yeah,
we have a lot to do
Yeah.
to hurry through some work here and get, as Judy says, more people involved and keep those nomination files fresh, and look at them again every year and discuss what is the meaning this year of determination. Is it about Black Lives Matter? Is it about working on HIV/AIDS? Is it those things have evolved over the years too.
Right.
So. Yes, we would really love to hear from women and men who want to participate, who want to help with this. I've got a tremendous intern right now who's a rising senior at MUS, so male person. So, a lot of people are interested anymore in new history.
That's great. What does it take to make all this work? I mean, does it take a lot of money? I know it takes a lot of time.
Sure, not a lot of money.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of money, but we can make a good.
We can make a good event.
Yeah.
It's determination, initiative, steadfastness.
Yes, all of those things. Yeah, right.
Definitely
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's, I always think, you don't know till you know, and you look at things like this, and it is a travesty that the women's stories have not been known like they should have. But as people get to know, then people do change, and things change obviously slowly, but
Willie, when we were kids, we 3, you could find a book about Betsy Ross.
Yep.
Or at least a chapter or a page somewhere about Betsy Ross.
Molly Pitcher.
Maybe, although she was about gone when I remember looking, because then they'd let Amelia Earhart sneak in, maybe.
Right, yeah.
A really liberal one might have Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm leaving out very many. Maybe, who did the Red Cross? Help me.
Clara Barton.
Clara Barton,
again,
in a really, kind of special way.
Yeah.
That was sort of it.
Wow.
When I go shopping now for my granddaughters, there are board books for infants of women's history.
Really?
And it's the most exciting thing for me. I shop sometime for them here in the second edition bookstore. But they're actually creating those stories for all ages of children. So there we are. Now that's the national and international names.
Sure.
I think it'd be great fun, Judy. This is what we need to do
This
on
is our next project.
On our
That's
next
right.
project.
We
need to write a children's
Yeah.
select out of this for some children. But it's a real true thing. And of course we have the Memphis writer, your friend, who's written the books about Martin Luther King and
Alice Faye Duncan.
You know, so
Okay.
She's
children,
a treasure for
history
us.
is being written more for children through biography.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tremendous way to learn history and to share it.
And at that point, it becomes organic.
Yes.
You know, it's there.
It's relatable.
Yes, not everybody's going to read it, but a lot of people are going to read it. And you know how kids are. This is my favorite book, and some other kid reads it, and so I just, the fact that there had to be such mindfulness and determination to get this out there is pretty astounding. So I'm glad y'all do this. I'm glad you. So every year, do you have an event where you give these awards? Tell about that.
Yes, that was part of the original vision. I happen to be sort of a groupie for the annual Oscars, bling and glitter.
Right.
So originally it was a dinner with no one knowing who was going to be honored.
Oh, okay.
We kept the name secret.
Yeah.
And just made sure that the honorees were invited and brought.
Yes,
You
right.
know, a whole lot of subterfuge went on.
Uh-huh.
So for a few years we did it that way. And then at a point, I don't know, 10 or 12 years in, we adjusted ourselves to more of a easier way to do it, which was, hello, Willie, will you be in town on X date? Okay, well then we'd like you to come be at this and give you an award. And that way she could bring all of her friends and colleagues and family and so forth.
Yeah.
So yes, it's in March, Women's History Month.
Yeah.
More recently it's been a Sunday afternoon, more like a tea time event. And of course we haven't had it the last recent marches.
Yeah.
When we do the next time, Ms. Judy Card will be one of the honorees. She is one.
Congratulations.
She is one who is in the class that was stalled by the COVID shutdowns of things.
Okay.
But yeah, so we do that huge. We make it as glitzy and as fun and as pretty and the way we do that, Willie, is we invite past honorees or other great interesting women and girls from around the community to come read the essay, and then the honoree comes forward and responds about why she did what she did and who she has to thank or whatnot. Wow. So it's a pretty good party.
It's community building.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
That is so amazing. What year did you start this?
84.
In 84. Wow.
Yep.
That's have there been times when you struggled to keep it going or anything? Or did you just kind of set it and figure out what you needed to do and let it rock?
No, I think it has to be re-triggered every year because it has no permanent staff or anything like that.
Right.
It exists out here,
Yeah.
just among us.
Yeah.
And so it continues by virtue of our belief in it, and this is why Judy, also my strongest partner, is one of the real co-founders. We want to see new generations interested in it, and women from all parts of the community continue to come join us in it, because there will be a moment when she and I won't be doing it anymore. But it's happened for 35 years.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that's a little bit remarkable. There was a moment when we were actually asked to consider giving it over to another group because women who had begun to lead it for a couple of years, I don't know, they were sort of weary or something.
I think they had a slightly different
Vision.
way of making it happen, and we were interested in getting more story and a little bit less process, perhaps.
Right.
So those of us who are past presidents stepped in and rescued it away from that and brought it back to more the original vision, and it has sauntered on ever since.
Huh. Well, I know it's tough. I've been in so many, well, not so many, but I've been in a few organizations that have kind of started out with a lot of hoopla, and you think this is going to be great, and then just the doing of it. I mean, I was president of an organization for a couple of years, and we had to do a newsletter every month, and I thought, well, that's no big deal. I had people working for me at the time, and we do that. But it was a big deal. I mean, this is hard stuff, and I don't think we can thank you two and all the other women who've been involved enough, because it's hard to do that kind of stuff, to make time to do that, and nobody is giving you a check.
Nope.
So
Nope.
So my hat is off to you.
Thank you.
And I hope I know this will continue. I want to talk a little about some other recipients. I know that Miriam DaCosta Willis was a recipient, and I knew Miriam. She's a wonderful, wonderful person, and Miriam passed away a few months ago,
Yes.
and we put together a little thing for her for her service at Elmwood, a little video, and there was a picture of Miriam when she and Maxine Smith had been arrested for boycotting some downtown businesses, and I think the picture was taken when they were walking out of the jail, and Miriam looked like Jackie Kennedy or somebody, and she's like just looking at the camera like this, and I thought, wow. I mean, you just until you know her, you don't really get it. But she was. I asked her one time. I said, "Were you that fearless?" She said, "No, I was always scared." She said, "But."
Yeah.
You have to do it. Somebody has to do it. And I think that probably goes across everybody that you've ever honored in this. You have to do it, right?
That's a very, very good point. I think many of these women that would fit exactly. They did it because they couldn't not do it.
Yeah.
It had to be done, and so it was each of them who chose to sacrifice, to ruin marriages, to spend less time with children, maybe not have such a blossoming career, whatever it was, to carry on some of these things. Our honorees, for the people who haven't yet looked at the website, we have people who dealt with AIDS back when that was, worse than leprosy to the uninformed. We have, of course, all kinds of civil rights pioneers who were shot at, and their homes were shot at. They had to hit the floor with their children. We have women who were scientists back when you weren't really supposed to, girls shouldn't be in there. That's nasty work. Attorneys, we have the attorney, Marion Griffin, who tried every which way and finally figured out how to get herself a law degree, and then how to figure out a judge who would sign off on her having the capacity to be an attorney, and then she went into legislature and was the first woman there as well. So, yes, what is that makes a person keep going and then be the model? We've had more than one story of women who come to our awards event and then go out and take a step into something in their career or community that they'd been thinking, I can't really, I don't have it, I don't want to. And then they hear the stories from our stage, like Summer, who was raped, had the baby, began this career, and now has created this whole national movement around supporting teenagers through very high-risk situations. And, well, gosh, if they're doing all of that, I can at least apply for this, or I can at least ask the boss for that.
Wow. So not only is it honoring people who've done things, it's inspiring generations.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I think
absolutely.
that's almost the most important part is inspiration.
Yeah.
We have in the past had forums where focused towards that very thing, where we would invite women who had achievements around a certain topic and make panel discussions and invite younger women to come and participate in the conversation and hear their stories, hear what they're doing now and what they see for the future in that area. And that's one of the things that we have always especially liked to do.
Yeah. If you had that those 3 wishes maybe to be able to do things, what are some things that if you had money and time and all those things, how could you ramp this up, to do more? And or is it even right to think of in those terms? I mean, you're doing something that is very organic now and getting into the community, but could you have classes? Would there be, women's history in high schools and things like that?
Yes, 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 and yes.
Yes.
Yes and yes, but it also might be really great to do more of the forum thing with a little bit of money and support to bring young women in with these honorees on some kind of regular basis where you're getting up close and personal and hearing their stories and telling your own stories in the process.
Yeah.
If we could conquer the challenge of collecting young people, whether that's middle and high school, for example, or something, and then bring our stories, our living examples together with them. If we could figure that out, I think that would be incredibly dynamic. And in this community, or this city and our towns in this county, I think that would be a real gift, because we know we have so many children who do not see everything we wish they could in terms of possibilities, in terms of hope, in terms of potential for themselves.
Yeah.
I've forgotten who said it first, or if it but you can't be what you can't see.
Yes.
Or what you don't see. There's that as well. For another, we could be making embroidered pillows here, really, with all of our wisdom. But,
but that's exactly it.
That's what these stories can be,
Sure.
not only to middle and high school, but certainly also college and so forth. So, yes, if we had 3 things, I think making all of this more teachable moments for all kids, whether that's our board book, Judy, or the month of March curricula or whatever. Doing more to bring these stories in front of that sort of 12 to 17, who am I, what am I, do I have a purpose, I'm no good, yes I can be good crowd.
Right, yeah.
And then just to really ramp up the celebrations so that we have more people involved and have such a robust program of nominations and stories that we just can't get it all done.
Yeah. How much do you see that mentoring comes into this? I mean, do you see younger kids wanting to talk to people, and do you ever have people going out to schools and talking?
I don't think we've done enough yet to connect with the schools, and honestly, part of that is how challenged our school system has been for a number of years with the change from Shelby County's schools to being really the Memphis City schools, and then the other schools broke away, and then there are many, many, many schools with which to communicate if we want to do something like this, and it can be a very time-consuming process. So we would have to very wisely figure out our way in to make anything like that happen. And as Judy has said, we've been living other lives and having our careers and doing this as well. And so making a year-round effort to create and position curricula is not something we've yet done.
I think that we just simply don't have enough woman power to do all the things we would like to do.
Sure.
Since we don't have any paid staff at all, and it's
Yeah.
completely volunteer effort.
Yeah.
And when you start dealing with a system like the schools, you
Yeah.
pretty much need somebody who can focus on that a few hours consistently, regularly, whether that's once a week or every day.
It
Right.
takes dogged determination.
Yeah.
And I should also say to that, in that arena there, that Women of Achievement exists today as a program housed at the Memphis Area Women's Council.
Okay.
So I'm executive director of the Memphis Area Women's Council, which has its own board and it's 501c3 and all of those good things. And the Women of Achievement is housed there and functions out of there as a program of voice and leadership and awareness and so forth.
Right.
So to that extent, whatever I am as staff to the council, I share over to Women of Achievement, but it was also Women of Achievement back to '84. Women's Council's only to 2004. So
Okay.
it lives its own life. This
Yeah.
is just its address.
Yeah. I was thinking, I tried several years ago to, I wanted to share the films I've made with Memphis City Schools. I thought, you know, I went to call somebody at the board and finally got a meeting and went over. And I said, you know, I'd like to make DVDs and just give to the schools, and if somebody can just write a little study guide about Overton Park or Elmwood or, you know, the Garage Bands, whatever, you know, and it just nothing. So yeah, and so I feel bad now for asking you, why don't you do this, you know? But yeah, it's a very daunting kind of aspiration to do that, because I tried for 2 or 3 years and never really got anything. So we're wrapping up here. I really want to thank both of you for being here today. This has been a fascinating conversation. It always interests me so much, things that weren't, but things that are now, you know. And you both have been kind of at the forefront of making something that wasn't into something that is.
Yeah. I do want to say something before we wrap up, which is that the Women of Achievement papers are being archived in the history department here in the Memphis room.
Yes.
And so I think that's an important kudos to Wayne Dowdy and his team for making that happen.
That's wonderful. You know, I always, you know, one of the reasons I love doing this show is because it's going to be in the library in 50 years. Yeah. And people are going to see who we were and what we did and what we looked like and what we talked about. And we just kind of planting that stake in the ground today in July of 2021 and doing that. And that I love that, and I love the fact that all of this, all of those stories are going to be a part of what we have here. You know, the greatest gifts we've given ourselves as Americans are libraries. You know, and I love that. And so thank you so much. You know, I'd like to have y'all to come back on maybe once a year, and let's talk, and maybe really talk about some of the individuals you're gonna honor that year. I think that'd be a great show.
Great.
So let's do that. And you know, I really appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I'm so glad to be back doing the show. I've really missed this, and we'll be back next time with some more interesting folks. I want to thank Deborah Clubb, and I want to thank Judy Card for being my guest today.